Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
It is our basic human right to be fuck-up.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Hello, occultists, and welcome to Occulte Veritatis podcast. My name is Sage Murray, and joining me today is
Richard Bigley,
Ood Gallifrey,
and
the soundboard demon, or in this case, the internet demon, because I'm everywhere now. I've seen so many pictures of cats.
So many pictures of cats. So this episode is a very special podcast episode because I am recording a podcast for my Women's and Gender Studies 311 class. So the topic I chose for my podcast is Marxist feminism and motherhood. I'm very interested in this topic because as both a person interested and involved in Marxism as well as a mother, I wanted to know what scholars had to say about the unpaid labor that many mothers undertake in the home. So with that, let's have some poison.
So, what's your poison?
So I assume that everyone is drinking water because this is clearly a very professional endeavor.
I'm not drinking water.
Now the real question is, can you define a human soul as water? Because yes, I've been drinking a lot of water.
I'm just playing with my cat.
I like that. I also like the implication. Sorry, this is a professional one.
I'm drinking coffee that was brewed the day before, but I microwaved it really hot. So I think I'm going to be okay. Yeah.
I hate it. Okay, so I guess we're done with poison.
Unpaid care work is the kind of work that people do in taking care of each other and building up each other's capabilities. In particular, very young children, people who are sick, need a pretty significant amount of attention and care. And very often it is women who do this kind of work. The main characteristic of unpaid work is that it's not directly paid or remunerated. Now, in theory, this kind of work should be counted as part of GDP. For example, if you take a country like Argentina, the calculations that were done by feminist economists and statisticians give us a figure of about 7% of GDP. And in a much less developed country like Tanzania, it was even seen to be a much higher figure, like 63%. One study included also a case study of Switzerland. What was found out was if you added the unpaid care work that is done in Switzerland and you value it, it's almost as big as the banking and insurance industry in Switzerland. But to really value this work, I think what is really important is to appreciate its significance for any society or economy. So this work is really what makes, the society and the economy tick. In many ways, this kind of work can be seen as the solid foundation on which official industries and services and economies and schools and universities sit. Without this kind of work, it would be very difficult to even think of a society that can function. One kind of universal fact seems to be that in nearly all human societies, it is often upon women this kind of work falls. What we say, it's highly feminized. We have some data which showed that something like 75% of all unpaid care work is carried out by women and girls. So this is a very unequal distribution between men and women. In fact, it does penalize women because taking on the bulk of this work often carries a penalty in terms of not being able to have a full-time job with a decent wage, not being able to accumulate a pension, not getting all of the benefits that come from formal sector employment. So the penalties are many, even though the benefits to society are huge. Redistributing care is really, really critical. So that really involves a rethink rethinking and redoing of our kind of social relationships. States can go a long way in terms of making sure that there are good quality public services, childcare services, but also you try and change your expectations and social norms so that women and men can share those responsibilities more equally. So with more policies, you also increase the social expectation that more can be done to redistribute the work and not to just say this is a private matter and it's for families to deal with, which very often falls on women and girls.
So my interest in Marxism, socialism, and social justice began at a very early age. I've always loved the ideas of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels because they really seem to care about folks who are at some sort of disadvantage. The notion of from each according to their ability to each according to their means really resonated with me because I kind of grew up in a more conservative household. When I became a mother in 2014, that interest really started to expand on the notion of motherhood actually being labor. I'd been on a feminist journey for years at this point, but suddenly I was thrust into a situation where, for the first time in my life, I would be undertaking important work for which I would not be paid. So to begin, I would like to define Marxist feminism. And feel free to jump in. Marxist feminism is a species of feminist theory and politics that takes its theoretical bearings from Marxism, notably the criticism of capitalism as a set of structures, practices, institutions, incentives, and sensibilities that promote the exploitation of labor, alienation of human beings, and the debasement of freedom. So to kind of clarify that with more layman language, basically Marxist feminists are very critical of capitalism and believe that many of the world's ills are directly tied to the exploitation of labor.
I think it's an interesting perspective to come from, because when you start to look at labor in a constructive way and like how labor is being exploited to produce profits, you can't help but notice kind of the patriarchal attitude of, you know, women should stay home and raise the children. Like it or not, that's got to be more than a full-time job's worth of hours per week of.
It definitely is.
And, you know, like it has to happen if you want to like raise a successful child, to put it in such crude terms. So that labor has to be done by someone. And because of the attitudes in society, it's usually done by women.
But it's even broader than that, in the sense that you've got a capitalist system that relies on consumers and it relies on workers. And now you need somebody to raise those future workers and those future consumers. And like you said, it often falls to women to have to fulfill that role. And again, that role of creating labor and consumers is an unpaid position. And even though the system absolutely is necessitated for this new upcoming generation in order for them to work and to consume.
Well, I think it's amplified by capitalism too, because like, you know, the hunger of the system wanting more capital to be generated, like usually has both parents working. And if a woman is expected to do a large portion or all of the child rearing, like that just adds to the job she may already have. You know, I think there's even a name for it, the second shift.
If I think back to my own mother's life, she was born in 1908. Women couldn't vote. Only 18% of them worked outside the home, and only a few jobs. You could be a maid, you could be a teacher, you could be a secretary. You couldn't take a loan out in your own name. It was another world, culturally, economically, politically. And now to think where we are, where women are half the labor force in every kind of job. So what a revolution. And so I decided to step in to see how this revolution was going. Was it compatible with happy families? I first got the idea of a second shift from a woman I was talking to who said, I go to work, I'm on. I come home from work, The kids need to be fed. They need to be put into a bath and put to bed. I've got to get lunches ready for tomorrow, put the laundry in, on. Then I go to sleep and I wake up. And she said, life at home has become a second shift. What I really wanted to do was find out, do women work a second shift? How does it work out? Who does what at home? And how do they feel about what they do? What I did for a book I came to call A Second Shift was to first go to a Fortune 500 company and get every 13th name, sent out a short little questionnaire. Would you be willing to be interviewed? People who volunteered, I sat down with in the living room and asked if they would be willing for me to really make a case study of them. And I was studying women married to husbands, both working full-time, who had kids 6 and under, the crunch. At first, I just observed and positioned myself as the family dog, someone just hanging out. And what I began to notice is that women actually spent more time dealing with the children and the house. They were more likely to do 2 things at once. They would be folding the laundry and on the phone. Guys would do things one at a time more often. What I was finding is that women were going home to husbands who said, sweetheart, love to have you working so long as you can do most of the housework and raising the children. And they went out to jobs where the boss was saying, Susie, love to have you here so long as you're here at 8 on the dot and leave 5:36. Really a workplace that had originally been designed for men with stay-at-home wives. And then she went into a culture in which the government said, oh, you're on your own. I'm not going to help. They wanted very much to live happy family lives, but something was getting in the way. And what it was disagreements about what a man's role and a woman's role was. And I found that the happiest families were those who did come to some agreement and who did share the second shift. This revolution in the transformation of women had led to fast-changing women and slow-changing everything else. And it was creating strains, and the family became the shock absorber of those strains. So what looked like a personal reason for unhappiness or even divorce, I began to see as the result of a larger stalled revolution. And I set about trying in a way to look for solutions to unstall that revolution. I went to another Fortune 500 company, and that was supposed to be very avant-garde in offering a lot of family-friendly policies. I was looking at job sharing, at good part-time work with benefits. I was looking at career sabbaticals and a flex time and flex place. In other words, for both men and women, were there jobs out there where they could really put their heart in it and do a good job, but it gave flexibility for balancing work with family. The workplace that I was studying was amenable to more flexibility, but it laid on long hours. And that was true nationally, that middle-class jobs were getting longer and longer, taking more time, and working-class jobs were not each one job taking longer, but people were often working 2 jobs. That meant there was less time to be with your kids and tend to your home. If we're talking about work-family balance and the unstalling, the stalled revolution, I think we have to look fundamentally at ourselves as a society.
According to Karl Marx, the German philosopher for whom Marxism is named, under capitalism, since the immediate purpose and the authentic product of capitalist production is surplus value, labor is only productive, and an exponent of labor power is only a productive worker if it or he creates surplus value directly. For example, the only productive labor is that which is directly consumed in the course of production for the valorization of capital. So that's basically what you've all been saying. Like, the only valuable labor is, according to a capitalist society, is what you can make money off of. So the Marxist feminine movement came out of the second wave of feminism in the mid-60s, Women were looking for a more meaningful and less shallow version of feminism, and this exciting workers' feminism was very appealing to many women on the left politically. The second wave was more inclusive to women who were from different walks of life than just middle-class white women. It gave more people of color, disabled folks, LGBT plus folks, and less affluent folk a voice, and it felt more revolutionary. This was very important for the feminist movement as a whole and for more marginalized folks specifically. So according to Christine DiStefano, it is the division of labor in child rearing that results in the objectification of women or mothers. Women are treated as objects and not as subjects. As a characteristic feature of Western culture, this kind of status reduction is also inflicted on men. Masculinity is more in opposition or contrast to maternal femininity, but for reasons ultimately having to do with the boy's problematic differentiation, all others have to be under him in order to ensure his sense of self. So obviously, this commodification of women and work in the home is incredibly harmful to both men and women. These ideas just help to enforce the toxic idea that women are little more than household objects, similar to a vacuum cleaner or a dishwasher. The pitting of men and women and others against one another literally only helps to reinforce patriarchy and rigid gender norms.
Hello, everybody. Well, here we are again on the four corners of suburbia to ask unsuspecting passers-by a question or two. The question today, a homely one: should husbands help with the weekend housework? Do you think that husbands should help with the weekend housework?
Yes, definitely.
Oh, why do you say that?
Because I do a bit myself.
Much?
Oh, a fair bit.
Cook?
Yes, cook.
Wash up?
Wash up.
Maybe you'd be better off as a bachelor doing all your own work.
Yeah, I would be.
Yes, certainly. Yeah, instead of them going out.
Have you been married long?
Yes, a good many years.
You, me? Oh, I'm a widow. My wife's dead. Lost her 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Yes, I used to help her weekend. Used to work hard, come home. Used to help her Saturdays and Sundays. Do all the work.
Quite happy to do that?
Yes, I was.
Pussy should always give a woman a spell.
How about Dad having a rest too? Because I suppose he's been working all the week.
No, he hasn't. He hasn't worked for 8 years.
Should they? It all depends. Well, I'm going to say, if you're working all the week, well, I should say not. But if the wife is sick or anything like that, well, I think they should.
Are you married?
I am.
So comes the weekend and your wife is well, you don't do any work, so that?
Oh, well, I have plenty of other work to do outside, like the gardening and all that sort of thing.
Do you think that husbands should help their wives with weekend housework?
Yes, I think they should. It's just natural.
Are you married?
No, I'm single, but I do all the housework myself. I live on my own.
Do you cook?
Well, I don't eat very much. I cook now and again.
You sew and mend and that kind of thing?
Oh, yeah, the best I can do. Seeing I've been out of work about 2.5 months.
Oh, good Lord, no, I wouldn't say that. I don't think we should do
why's that?
Oh, poor old man, he works too hard. The wives have got nothing to do.
Do you think that husbands should help with the housework at the weekends?
Well, that all depends. If the wife goes to work through the week, I think he should help.
I see.
But otherwise, I don't. I think he should relax a little bit.
Are you married?
I am.
Does your husband go to work? I suppose he does.
Oh, yes.
And you?
Yes.
Oh, you both go to work? So your husband does cooking and that kind of thing at home?
Oh, yes, everything.
Definitely. My word, I do. It's only fair that they should do that.
You're married?
Yes. Can't you see it in my face?
I thought you were eating banana.
Go ahead.
You do a lot of weekend housework?
Yes, I do it all.
What does your wife do? Why do you do the housework?
She rests.
Do you think that husbands should help with the weekend housework?
It all depends what chores they've got to do themselves.
Oh. How's it organised at your house?
Oh, well, I have 4 girls, and there's a lot of work to do.
Oh, I guess that means that Dad can sit down most of the time.
And no, he's out most of the time to keep out of my way. That's for
I
sure.
certainly do.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. Why shouldn't they?
You're married, are you?
Yeah, well, that's her
Just about.
What do you mean, just about?
Well, let's say in 2 weeks.
Oh, I see. And you've got your mind made up already how you'll organise it.
Oh, for sure.
Is that your intended behind you, is it?
That's for sure.
Ah, are you for sure? I mean, you know what she said.
That's for sure, yes.
Well, what do you think? I mean, would you stand over there just a little bit? That's the idea. Do you think that she's right in her views that you should help with the housework?
My word, why shouldn't we?
Do you think that husbands should help with the weekend housework?
Yes, certainly, all the time, but mine doesn't.
If you could speak a little bit to how you feel objectified, or like how you may have feel objectified to do chores and stuff like that, like just by societal standards. Yeah, I'd like to hear a little more about that from your personal experience.
Sure. Well, I have like a super duper excellent, amazing partner, and I have never felt like that. Even when I was on maternity leave, and I stayed home for 2.5 years with my son, I was never meant to feel any less if I didn't get anything done, and literally just spent all day on the couch, like nursing my kid. My partner never ever made me feel like that, but I can definitely empathize with mothers who are expected to fulfill all of these, like to maintain their whole entire house while also leaking through their shirts because their breast milk is leaking out, and feeling completely exhausted and completely overwhelmed. Incredibly fortunate to have never had to experience that myself, because Mr. Sage Murray is a rock star partner.
Are you just saying that because he's in the episode chat?
No, I'm not. I don't even know where he is. I thought he was making me supper.
I do like the I guess the how you phrase it, as masculinity is often seen as, you know, in opposition to femininity. And
Right.
I think that's certainly something that you know, you can certainly see that in the media. For example, if you look at like a sports magazine or a gym magazine or something like that, or whatever, with like Hugh Jackman on it, and you know, he's ripped and he's angry and he's, you know, whatever, and you know, and then you look at like his photo shoot in, like, you know, a magazine typically read, or I guess intended for women, and you know, he's, you know, wearing a sweater and he's got a very relaxed look, and he's, you know, kind of giving you a, you know, a soft smile, and it's very interesting. You know,
he's holding 5 dogs, at least 5 dogs. Yeah,
exactly. And it's this, like, you know, when your target audience is men, it's like he's got to be angry because that's the only emotion men can feel is anger. And then, you know, you see him in you know, traditionally women's magazines where women are the I guess target audience, and it's just like, you know, this like friendly neighbor who's walking his poodles kind of thing, and he's like, hey, how you doing, you know, that sort of thing.
I think gender roles don't work out well for anybody, and like I think that's a misconception many people have, is like, you know, the patriarchy and like how unbalanced society is bad for women, and it is bad for women, but it's also bad for everybody involved, because like it's a system of expectations that's pushed on everybody, and it's not healthy for anybody. It doesn't produce good outcomes.
Oh, exactly. A man named Foucault is another like super knowledgeable philosopher in the realm of Marxist feminism. His questions and hypotheses are part of a radical reevaluation in post-structuralist thought in the classical humanist conceptual split between ideology and economics, sexuality and politics, the individual and the social, the subversive and the repressive. So as such, they kind of help to open up a space for feminist questions which have been obscured, marginalized, or subsumed under the teleological project of other theories. He has helped make Marxist feminism a little bit more accessible to general folks. So he's another really super cool guy that I found a lot of research from. Another cool lady is Sabine Gertler, and according to her, the work that women undertake in the home is of equal importance as paid labor. Society as a whole, unfortunately, does not quite view it that way. And let me tell you, like, even when I was at home in my like super cushy, like amazing home life with this super supportive partner who never batted an eyelid if I literally sat on the couch all day and just nursed our kid. It still feels like you're doing really hard work for no money, and it feels like you're maybe less important. And obviously that isn't true, right?
I've spent the past 28 years raising 4 humans, so I know that motherhood in the trenches is hard. There is real and difficult work to be done every single day. Unfortunately, in addition to the unavoidable challenges of motherhood, many women also struggle with unnecessary pain because of unrealistic expectations. Since the very beginning of my career as a therapist, almost without exception, women have expressed feelings of guilt, shame, conflict, inadequacy in regards to motherhood. Guilt about childcare, conflict about working, feeling responsible for adult children's choices. Because of my own shame and the pain I was hearing in my therapy clients, I started researching motherhood, shame, gender roles, and family life. I started thinking about some of the problems of rigid traditional gender roles. What does the idealization of motherhood do to women who don't have children? It may make them seem like their contributions are somehow less valuable. I've heard more than one tearful, childless woman in my therapy office say, "All I've ever wanted to be is a mom. Now I'm getting so old that I won't be able to have a child." We must value women as human beings first and foremost, not value them based on their motherhood status. No matter who you are, if you really want to value motherhood, instead of idealize it, engage yourself in the work of nurturing other human beings. When we highly value something, we want to be a part of it. Do more of the work that mothers do. Be a partner, not a bystander, to the work of mothers.
So it is also important to examine the issue of race within a Marxist feminist framework. So obviously, I am super duper white. I'm a settler in Canada. So I'm not speaking about these issues from a place of knowledge, personal knowledge. I'm just speaking in a purely academic sense. So concerning the multiracial and cultural working class identity and standpoint, we know that there is no working class studies in the academy similar to women's studies. So this means that the delineation of emotional and psychological selfhood of the working class has been made by and through the testimony of people in a central relationship to the dominant culture. That is to say, by and through people who are not working class people. So suppressing the knowledge produced by any oppressed group makes it easier for dominant groups to rule, because the seeming absence of an independent consciousness in the oppressed can be taken to mean that subordinate groups willingly collaborate in their own victimization. Obviously not true. So Marxism must integrate bell Hook's notion that by moving oppressed people's lives from the margin to the center of social analysis, one starts social inquiry from vantage points that provide more critical insights into the relations of oppression. I have a quote here from a Latino trade union activist named Fernando Gaspin and a professor of labor studies at the University of Berkeley. He said, "As you know, academia constantly berates the life experiences of working class intellectuals in an attempt to place us in a hierarchical relationship that always has us on the bottom. In other words, as they, the elite, set standards that are favorable for themselves, they are in a position to dismiss or downgrade our submissions." Ethnic entrepreneurship is often seen as proof of the benefits of the free enterprise system. If people are ambitious and willing to work hard, they can succeed. But in reality, many non-white American Canadian businesses do not have a single outside employee, they're not actually super successful. Consequently, the relation of power within the capitalist economic system cannot be seen simply in class terms because they're divided along gender lines and at the same time are cross-cut by the impact of racism and ethnicity. So according to Marxist feminism, people of color are also included in that. Like lots of people often criticize Marxism as being like super duper white, but Marxist feminism is way more concerned about integrating different kinds of theory and different viewpoints. So they definitely see the impacts of capitalism and, you know, race relations and stuff on people of color, not just on white working class folk like myself. What do you guys think of that?
I mean, I think inclusivity and integration are essential to have a good and working society. If you're missing people's perspectives and, you know, the things they want, the things they need, the things that they need you to understand, then you're not going to be able to build a good society with them. So I think that, yeah, inclusion is essential.
So in conclusion, my interest in this topic has been building over the years. It seems like many Marxist feminists absolutely, obviously, believe that unpaid versus paid labor seems to be a loaded topic, encompassing social norms, patriarchy, traditional gender norms, race relations, and all sorts of other stuff. Unless anyone has anything else to add, that's the end of this podcast.
Abolish capitalism.
Capitalists are in hell. Don't do capitalism, kids.
For Occulte Veritatis, I am Sage Murray, along with
Richard Bigley.
Ood Gallifrey.
Love you, bye!
Today's palate cleanser is short, sweet, and what I once thought was lost. Months ago, one of our lovely patrons, Carrie, sent a clip of them singing Down with the Pussy to the tune of Down with the Sickness by Ramstein. And I finally found it in the spam folder. Enjoy the short clip and see you in the after show.
Come on, go down on the pussy. Come on, go down on the pussy. Come on, go down on the pussy. Pussy is the gift that has been given to me.
Hello, once again, and welcome to the after show. The time has arrived once again to welcome in some new cult members of Valhalla. Now, we're still a small indie podcast. We don't have 10 new patrons every episode, but we still get a few every month. And we appreciate each and every one of you. You have no clue how much your donations and your pledges have helped keep this boat afloat. On a month-to-month basis, your donations help pay for our hosting, help pay for our website, help pay for all the different services we use to keep the podcast running. And for surprise expenses such as equipment failing, or even mailing all of our patrons during Christmas. Every penny that is being donated is being saved and used to put back into the show. Upcoming expenses include a road trip around Canada where we're going to record some episodes, you know, if the whole COVID thing goes well, and a new editing computer. Because right now I'm hearing my editing computer groaning and grinding beneath me, and it's going to be super sweet when we have enough money to buy a brand new one. And hopefully I'll be able to get episodes out to you a little faster, or at least I spend less time sitting at a computer editing and more time researching and presenting topics to you guys. If you would like to join our Patreon, have access to bonus content, get episodes earlier than everyone else, vote on upcoming episode topics, and get access to a top secret patron and cult member only Discord room where hot memes are a-flowing every day, for little as $1 a month, you can join the Patreon and get everything. Patreon.com/OVPod. Join today. But that's enough preamble. Let's welcome these new cult members into the cult of Valhalla. First we welcome, at $1 a month, Levi Chase, welcome to the cult of Valhalla. Sharpen your knife and prepare for the blood feast. Next up, Amanda Reyes, welcome to the cult of Valhalla. Prepare to gorge yourself on fruit aplenty so we may dance under the moonlight as a cult. Next new cult member, at a very sinful $6.66 a month, Verena Schleich. Welcome to the cult of Valhalla. Top off your lantern oil so we can walk into the darkness together. Last, but certainly not least, new cult member, Kylie Kinnan. Be sure to wrap your feet in the holy herbs so when you walk on the coals we can enjoy the smell together. Oh, and Kylie is one of the first people to use our yearly subscription option on Patreon, which means they subscribe for an entire year of bonus episodes, voting on future content, and access to our Discord server. So if you've paid all your bills and had your fun and you have a little money left over after the paycheck lands, consider dropping a yearly subscription on OffPod. You're going to make a bunch of Canadians happy for an entire 365 days, and you'll be supporting independent media. And if you found us entertaining so far, and you found our free content entertaining so far, and you feel like you can afford it, maybe consider dropping a buck or two. Anyways, I've been Ood Gallifrey. A grand welcome to all the cult members, old and new, and we'll be back next week with our biggest case yet. And this time, it's very personal. Have a wonderful week. Sleep well. Be well.